We're live.
There we go. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome, bienvenidos, bonjour, from wherever you are joining us to view today's live poetry open mic on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. I'm Sandy Yannone, your host and author of the book Boats for Women from Salmon Poetry. It is my absolute pleasure to be joining you today from the Winter Wonderland in Old Saybrook, Connecticut, where I grew up and began to write poetry in high school. I've been staying with my folks since December, and I'll be here for the next month until I go back to the West Coast. Well, a little bit about Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. This Facebook group and weekly reading series was started last March by my sister Elizabeth Ann and myself in response to the global pandemic. And we keep persisting in our response week after week, bringing you just exceptional poetry and bringing that poetry to life every Sunday. And we'll be doing that every Sunday during 2021 as well, our second year. We alternate weeks with a live open mic as we have today, and our other popular format are new books showcase readings. Before I introduce our poets for our first hour, a preview for, we have a special February event coming up, our Laureate Love Fest. And I will give you the info in the chat about that. We'll be having poets laureate from across the United States and special guests from Canada and Ireland joining us. And it's pre-registration required, webinar format for the first time with our co-sponsors, the Olympia Poetry Network and St. Martin's University in Lacey, Washington. You won't want to miss it. Read about it. The poets are extraordinary. We'll also have live video performances from Ted Kuzer, former U.S. Poet Laureate, as well as a video from Joy Harjo, the current U.S. Poet Laureate. Well, how about a little bit about each of our Hour One readers, with a reminder to check out our readers' bios on our group page and our event page for information about to purchase their books, chapbooks, and their swag to support them and their presses, so important during the pandemic. Those of you who are joining us live over in Facebook and over on our Zoom group page, feel free to use the chat during the reading as well and give your love to the poets and their support. I'll come back at the top of the next hour to introduce you to our Hour Two poets. But for now, let me introduce you to our first set of writers. Joining us first today will be Amit Dahiyabadshah from India. And Amit has been an organic farmer, a communication planner, an outdoor survival instructor, a skills of observation trainer, which I'd like to learn more about. And for the last 25 years has been a full-time working poet with 20 collections to his credit. In 2004, the Senior Environment Corps Center in the Park from Germantown in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, designated him their poet laureate. He is the founder of Delhi Poetry, a 25-year-old poetry movement that hosted one poetry reading a day for 10 years. Every time I read that, I am astounded because I do this every week and I can't imagine every day, as much as I love poetry. Amit's signature poem, which we heard earlier this month, The Last Will of the Tiger, was featured as a film on NDTV, New Delhi TV, and it helped raise $500,000 to help save the tiger. Following Amit will be Kathryn Clare Wegrzyn, who claims that spoken word, storytelling, and song are her lifelong joy. 4 years of writing workshops led by authors, poets, and brilliant teachers has built her a writer's bridge of confidence. I love it. And Cultivating Voices live poetry, she says, has offered her a magnificent worldwide outreach. Her first poetry submission ever, the poem Everywhere We Rise, was accepted for a 2020 Colorado Regional Art and Poetry exhibit. I just want to give a big congratulations for that acceptance. Next will be Shaswata Gangopadhyay, one of the prominent faces of contemporary Bengali poetry, who started writing in the mid-90s. Born and brought up in Kolkata, India, Shaswata has 3 books of poems: Inhabitant of Pluto Planet, 2001, Offspring of Monster from 2009, and Holes of Red Crabs from 2015. Very recently, Shaswata's poetry has been exhibited at the Piccolo Museo della Poesia in Piacenza, Italy, the only poetry museum in the world. English translations of Shaswata's poetry have been published in various journals and anthologies in Europe, North America, Asia, and Africa. Next will be Larry Kerschner. And I always like to say about Larry was one of the very few people who read in the in-person version of Cultivating Voices live poetry before it was Cultivating Voices, and was a very early reader as well on Cultivating Voices live poetry versus Zoom. It is always a pleasure to welcome Larry back. Larry Kerschner is married with 3 children and 5 grandchildren for 35 years. He worked as a registered nurse and the last 25 years as a family nurse practitioner in rural communities here in Washington State. Politically active with Veterans for Peace and Pacific Life Community, he has self-published the following books. I own them all and they are extraordinary. Gravelines from 2013, Rhymed Love 2014, Poems New and Used from 2016, George Washington, founder of Centralia, 2018, Grotesque Arms from 2019, and Other Eyes, Translations of Poems by Larry Kerschner, 2019. And you can connect with Larry through his sporadic blog that I'll put in the chat for you all. And finally, for our first hour, we will end with a voice you know well here on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, Bill Nevins, who lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, here in the States. His cultural journalism appears in various publications, including No Depression and Logos, a journal of modern society and culture. His books of poetry, Heartbreak Ridge and Awe, appear both from Swimming with Elephants publications. Everybody, have a great first hour of poetry with our 5 extraordinary poets, and I'll see you in the next hour. Amit, take it away.
He has to unmute. Yes.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me, please?
You're good,
Yes,
Amit.
yes,
You're
we can
good.
hear you.
Yep.
Go ahead.
You're good.
Yep, we can hear you. Yep.
Okay. So someone gave me a little feedback saying that my poems tend to be melancholy and maudlin and overly serious. So I decided to start with something silly. It's called Love on the Net. It's for all those tigers and tigresses who find love on the net and across time zones. Now night is day and day is night, and sunset melds with morning light, and still we are not done. Our mumbling, fumbling, stumbling, bumbling, humbling, crumbling, ways to make us one, as one by one the odds dispose, with hearts and throats we both propose, stomachs fatten on butterflies. In this burning, freezing night, we say the things we couldn't. On internet, horizontally waltz, and do the things they say we shouldn't. On internet, horizontally waltz, and do all the things they say we shouldn't. Across time and space, on internet joined, in ways we never knew. In this resonance, my friends, you won't believe how well we grew and flew. Um, Thank you. Uh, on a serious note, this poem is called Terror of the Hunting Lad Gone to War. I wrote it in the R8 train from Chestnut Hill to Philly Center. I just come to the States and I didn't realize that a flaming orange hunting jacket is not the best uh, apparel for, for a poetry reading. Someone was staring at me. The war was on in Iraq, and he got into a completely empty coach and was staring at me. I tried to ignore him because those were hard times. Then he got up and came and sat down next to me. I still tried to ignore him, but when he asked me whether I was from Iraq, I realized that things are not going in a good way. And I told him, no, I'm from India. So he said, would you know any good prayers? And I said to myself, oh, this is not going well. And I decided to turn towards him and say, I'm from India, but I'm not from the religious part. My part is all farming and soldiering. May I ask why you're asking me all these questions? And he said, my boy is in Iraq and he likes to hunt. And I thought, if you're from there, you might know a nice prayer for him that helps him to come back. And I felt terrible because I was thinking all the time, this man's looking for trouble. And I wrote this little poem called, I told him I'm a poet. I will write a poem for your son and read it every day that I'm in the US until he comes back. It's called Terror of the Hunting Lad Gone to War. There is terror when the long flight eastwards ends and a harsh hand of desert heat takes you by the throat, and the ground crew of the plane carefully avoids your eye, and the loadmaster avoids your face as a cargo of long boxes arrives to take your place for the long haul home. And the wind changes, bringing shining blue flies and a smell you remember from last winter's hunting only too well, when the freezer broke and the venison went throwaway bad. The same stench of rotting venison comes to you from the cargo of long boxes that has already taken your place for the long haul home. And the plane leaves the stench behind, gently caressing your face. It says to you, hey, wake up, it's time to play the game, to defeat the stench of rotting venison in a desert that offers no forest, no trees, no deer, only an endless hunting. Um, you know, um, I did a series of poems after 9/11, and then Katrina happened in New Orleans and the tsunami back home in South India. And I was chosen for Young Writers Day, which is a very nice thing they do in Pennsylvania, to read about poetry to young school children. And I wrote this poem for them. It's called Terror of the Ripening Mango. It was to try and convey to them that the terror lies in anything you perceive, and your perception can raise or lower the threshold of your feeling terror. When the floodwaters went down, They left behind, high in a hollow in the fork of a tree, in a tiny pool of water, a small fish. When the floodwaters went down, they left behind, high in a hollow in the fork of a tree, in a tiny pool of water, a small fish. Trapped in this strange isolation, the fish finds comfort in the reflection of a mango. But the mango grows faster than the fish, at a pace that threatens to consume its space. Trapped between the hole in the tree and the hole in the sky, the fish discovers the terrors that lie in the ripening of a mango. Um, thank you. I hope you can still hear me clearly. Yeah, thank you. This
Yes.
is a poem called Fear at the Water's Edge of the Pool of Learning. Fear at the water's edge of the pool of learning. Because one of the things that this COVID virus has done, it has exposed to us the chinks and the weaknesses in everything that we thought was our knowledge. They say a child has only two natural fears: the insufficiency of food and the mortality of parents. But I have a third fear, and it is the greatest yet. It is that we might not know what we think we know. I fear we may have taken a sieve to the sacred pool of learning and returned empty-handed, that the big book of botany has not become a single tree in 100 years, that all the architecture and civil engineering has not taught us to dig a small clay-lined pond in the empty backyard where the rain does the rest, and where your children ripple the waters with their spit and like horrified little gods see the bubbles culture tadpoles that become wonderfully huge frogs. They discover they have the power to bring a hole in the ground to life. We have passed our true learning by. Our information will not become knowledge. It will never become wisdom. And we will not dig any holes so the earth may find breath from the open mouths of little children whose eyes are made wide with frogs. Thank you. When I was in the States, I attended one workshop where everyone was being asked what inspired them to write. And I said a double weight sheet of paper and a broad nib pen. And the gentleman conducting the exercise said, the farmer poet from India is confusing the instrumentation of writing with inspiration. And I said, no, not really, because I come from a small village in Haryana, and the nearest stationery shop is about 100 kilometers away. So for me, a broad nib pen and a few sheets of double weight paper does the trick. He said, are you saying if I give you paper, pen, and a topic, you'll give me a poem? I said, fine. So he said, give me a poem about why you are here as a farmer poet from Haryana. Why are you here in the US? My poem is, I am here. I am here to claim a piece of this land for the old wooden plow, to somehow find a harvest also for the bird's nest, and to help establish the kingdom of the night crawler in broad daylight. I am here to reclaim this land for the return of a softness that will hold my woman's body gently as we seed her deeply together with the collective wisdom of our tribes. And even as she washes my work sweat with the liquid of her dreams, I am wiped by her wisdom and the tragic cloth of her experience. I am here to claim the land for the return of the small flavored fruit I am here for the return of the twisted, tasty vegetable with no two exactly alike. I am here to take the land back from the lubrications of machine oil and its savage taking by the machine. I am here for I must plant a naked human footprint upon this lovely, fertile crust before your vicarious taste for the things of the moon turns it all to grey moon dust. Uh, this poem of mine is called Window Shopping. It is a cold winter night. The market is empty, but the windows are bright with the warmth of a light in which the hard-working insomniac mannequins thrive. They stand at the glass, a couple dressed in rags, grimy faces, grimy hands, pressed to the warm glass. He says, they are window shopping. He says, I give you that bright red dress so that when you walk the streets at night, you look like the queen that you are. She says, I give you that hat so it keeps the sun off your face when you drive the rickshaw in the burning sun. He says, I give you that beautiful bird-shaped bottle of perfume so that you smell like the expensive whores that I can never afford. She says, I give you that wallet so that you may save the money for the day when you may need never pay me for my love again. He says, I give you those big, dark, dark glasses so that when I am with you and upon you and the sweat drips from my face onto yours, you may never be able to tell they are actually tears. And finally, I have a poem called Moon Drenched in Gulmarg. Gulmarg is in Kashmir, often described as a paradise on earth. The full moon night in Gulmarg. Who wrote this sheet of music, perfect notes serene? The night is dark and velvet, the snow is silver sheen, and snowy crags in counterpoint descend to join the green. Wave on wave of forest underline the score. And if this leaves you breathless, then wait, for there is more. See how nature sings in harmony. How I love the sweet plain song. How I love the starry aria, the music that plays on. The stream and insects sing chorus, a leopard a deep bass grumble, a singing stag, the sharp high notes, a cloud a steady rumble. Now somewhere in this symphony, a touch of opera. The big cat takes the singing stag beneath the starry candelabra. The sight and sound are just too much. They flood hearing and vision. The great big cat keeps dining on past midnight's intermission. But through it all, low notes and high, silver stream, star sequence sky. God who loves this music too sends shooting stars to bless Kashmir as she sings a sweet sad song of pain and happiness. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Yep, you're good. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here with all of my friends. And my first reading is called Winter Dreams Spring. Glaciers ice-packed polar freeze. Ice bear never hibernates winter's unfolding. Blizzard of her own will, when the cold wind is blowing, she is calling your name. Lovely bare trees, captivating a trance, profiled against winter skies, Branches twist and turn the dance. She invites you to join. Winter storm, blasts deep snows. Everyone prepares in layers. Hoarders crowd stocking up. Chill abounds. Hunker down. Wind-blown icicles swept into curves. Wood stacked, prepared within. Fire flames dance our worries away. Winter is not long to stay. Strong north winds pound the plains. Tree-forked branch nests remain, sculpted by bird architects. Spring will return, is their refrain. Morning sunbeams on frozen branches, treetops glistening, unspoken message, gentle call, beauty surrounds us all. She will stay. Frozen hearts melt memories, river flow fury to the sea. Plea for recovery, cloak in warmth, she's coming on. Blink in an instant, she is mighty fickle. Sun-kissed skies melt reservoirs, icicles had their chance. Winter dreams spring. Thank you, my friends. This is a welcomed invitation. Hope you like this story. Welcomed invitation with no names for roads. She guided me with landmark directions. With glee, I assured her this was once my home. I am on my way. With winding dirt roads, ascending to the end of the hill. With grandiose remodeling and additions, once tiny cabins as our homes. With 4 decades past, a measure of time, I return at last. With a western view of the Horsetooth Rock, deer grazing in the field are prolific. With surfacing memories, I, night jogging, miscalculated the winding drive. With the ravine that consumed me, I lay on the rocks, howling for help. With a house light turned on, the door opened. My friend said, "It's only a cat." With louder yelling out her name, her husband replied, "I better check on that." With a rescue saving me from a cold, windy night of despair, more memories fly with the desire to remove obstacles. I turn my car around for the drive home. With the path of the past, now surfaced with flagstone, mindful of my steps, with joy, friends united, we marvel at the long ago connections we have here. With greetings and salutations, we circle around, we circle each other, we hug, we sit in the front of the house. Now, with an eastern view of the reservoir, to the expansive plains, we chat. With the fading warmth of a sunny autumn day, we enjoy our tales and stories. With this welcomed invitation, soup preparations now underway. Without recognition of the quaint cabin my friends long ago had lived in, she leads me the way with a familiar narrow corridor, tiny rooms, a living room with a stone fireplace. With the beauty of this home she now pet sits in, we set the table with a view. With the beauty of day's end, we share the evening's conversation. Called it a night. With the many past memories rolled in today, although I had not moved very far away. With the fallen darkness, a dull house light, I declined a flashlight. With the path of the past now surfaced with flagstone, mindful of my steps, with a pounding presence of an enormous rising from the lower terrain, with frozen fear, no turning back, no ground under me, I flew into my car. I turned around, a close-up view of a majestic 6-point buck, one leg stomping the ground with low guttural grunt, the snorting wheeze just before a fight. With my passage identified as a source of danger set to come after me, with amazement I drove away. In my car, I'd turned around, and a lesser buck on every curve as I headed down the memory of Skyline Drive. Cultivating community. The First Nations people have been sent away to keep them in their place. December 18th, Trump shut down the federal government and it closed the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And it meant that there was no distribution of food or supplies. No funds were held for Pine Ridge. The banks were closed. There was no money to buy fuel, propane for cooking, for warmth. They needed help. The call came in, but no states of oil and gas fortitude responded. They starved. They mourned their dead. They froze. They called Denver. And Colorado responded. Very briefly, before I tell you my awareness, my ride along to Pine Ridge, I will tell you that I looked on Facebook and I saw a person's face and her writing, and she mentioned this woman, Laura, and I got a hold of Laura, and Laura should be ready for Biden's award for humanity because she got people to donate food from November 15th, and the first call for help to Denver rallied. And I, in Fort Collins, north of Denver, I rallied and we got permission from our office. Can we have people come? And they did. And they would drive in and I would run out and I would say, flip up your hood, flip up your trunk, flip up your trunk. And I'd take all their food inside and bid them farewell. And the next car would come in and I loaded and loaded. And Laura in Denver, the Democratic office, you couldn't walk through the halls. And people from homes and bakeries and churches provided food. And first it was 20,000 pounds, and then it was 30 pounds, and then it was 40, and it increased. When no one was going up anymore because there were storms and there were problems, and the people, the men from Pine Ridge could not leave and come down, Laura kept caravans going up, and then Laura started drive alones. After 10 solo rides, I said, spring equinox, this is my ride along. Full moon led us along the 2-lane highways. The side of the road, culverts are running full and fast. Yeah, gal, that's what you need to keep your eye on. If it comes up over the road, we need to turn around. Why are they so full? The eastern Nebraska massive flooding and attempts not to flood the power source at the Missouri River waters released water, and it's all flooding back in here. And that on top of our winter snowstorms, the snow bombs, that it's a mess. Keep your eye on the road. keep your eye on the road. As we drove through the night, I said, that is one big river over there. Gal, that was a dried up riverbed. Then I saw flooded farm fields with cows buried up to their necks, unable to move. All through the panhandle, I saw the need for FEMA to come to the rescue. Where's the rescue for Pine Ridge? As we crossed the imaginary border, it was good to see the sign, Welcome Home, the Ogallala Sioux Nation, and glad we had arrived. No, gal, we have 3 more hours to get to the center of the reservation. This is the largest and the poorest, and these are the people that have not received anything. Sorry. This is where they've not been receiving their food supplies. Many have been stranded for a week or more, and by horseback, riders are going way off road to deliver. As we headed into town, it was pitch black. As the earth tilt, moon set, people were walking along the narrow road in a family group of all ages or walking solo. It was hard to see them in the dark since they had to walk long distances to check on their family. There were no vehicles or no bicycles, gal. They had to walk. We passed the Billy Miles Center, and Laura said that was where the first delivery of food supplies was made. I had seen the video they had sent of everyone dancing and singing, "We have food, we have food." They had worked to organize all by category for people to come in and pick up for their households to end starvation. Keeping a watch on the side of the roads, occasionally a speed demon being chased by police, we listened to the local radio station. Laura, I'm sure, very tired, driving on up into the center of the reservation. With the radio on, several announcements were made naming a daughter, a sister, a mother that were missing. And then we were asked for a moment of silence. Missing from walking along the road of their home. We arrived across a muddy parking place to a warm room, hot water, the dream of a good home-cooked breakfast in the morning. Sleep was sporadic as 3 dogs had been in the truck for the long ride and had plenty of energy to jump from bed to bed and frolic. After an interesting meeting of a man I've never known, and I asked him where he was from, and he said Golden, and I said, I think I have your wife's book. I was in her writer's workshop, and I mentioned her book, and he smiled from ear to ear, and he invited all of us to join a meal at one table. He had been working at the local college. He was a wonderful educator. A car would be picking him up to get to the airport and fly back to Denver. Well, gal, that's our cue to get the trailer up to deliver and head back towards the only safe from flooding route towards Manderson and Wounded Knee. They're expecting road closures, so we need to make time. Unloading and head out. That's it. As we drove up the hill, greeted by the nicest people, they all started unloading into a temporary building. As we organized food and supplies, there was roof damage and leaking and wet floors, and we put everything over to one section, and then people could come in to share their needs. As we drove away, I was more keenly aware. Few homes were right off the road, most with a truck or a car buried to the roof in floodwaters. Most homes were far off the road. Later, we learned that Kristi Noem, governor of South Dakota, made the appearance of helping and had the National Guard bring a truck of water. The people had no potable water for drinking or making food or cleaning. By the time the people left their homes with a container and walked the long distance to get water, the National Guard truck had left with the movie cameras. We made it across the imaginary border into the panhandle to get gas. Somehow, we were treated like the enemy from the other side. On the way home, I looked out the window and I said, at least there's a beautiful lake over there. Laura looked at me and I replied, "Oh, I get it now. I get it now. It's all from the flood." News traveled fast that Trump had authorized millions of dollars of FEMA for the disaster declaration emergency recovery. Just across the line, President of the Oglala Sioux Nation requested the same designation. Zero, zero, zero. And that's where cultivating community. There were so many people that had been met during this whole starvation and apartheid of the people of the Pine Ridge Oglala Sioux Nation, that an email was sent to the federal government and to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which, after so many emails from so many cultivating community people, the first ever FEMA visit to Pine Ridge Reservation. I will tell you, the people that I have met through Cultivating Voices are my community. And it teaches me that cultivating community is important. I had the trust of people in my town that said, "Kate, here's the key. You advertise how you want. You could use our newsletter. You get people to come in." And they did. And we won community. And now I want to say that the man that is working for the Lakota People's Law Project continue to work towards the end of the Keystone Pipeline and DAPL. Chase Ironside is the public relations. It is his daughter that communicated cultivating community with Greta. And Greta came to Pine Ridge to talk with the people of Pine Ridge about our changing climate and what is happening with these floods, like winter storms of Ulmer and the winter storms of Wesley that wiped the people out. But the people of Nebraska's Panhandle had money, had equipment, had everything in place. We shall no longer limit our vision for the people of need, because we're on a mission. I'm gonna cry and stop my poetry now. I have another one, but I'm going to enjoy everybody else. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kate. Shaswata.
Yes. Uh, Hello to everybody, and first of all, compliments from India. Myself, Shaswata Gangopadhyay from Kolkata, India, Asia. And I originally write in Bengali, which is the 5th largest language on the earth. And as per UNESCO, it is the sweetest language. Now, directly going to my poems. First poem, Knife. I don't compose poems. I only manufacture knives. If you insult me, I place that insult into the pocket of my trousers. I come back, my grit grows stronger, and I make the edge of the knives sharper. What do? Simply writing poems. Then you spit and dive into it. Let the people laugh at. Meanwhile, I wait my alphabet, which I will throw one day that will pierce the throat with severe cut. The friend. A man is all alone when, instead of a bridge, he constructs a hard wall around both of his sides. Wrote a Greek philosopher in his diary. Myself also etched a long tattoo on the palms of my hands. the name of my dear friend, his latest phone number. In the scorching heat of noon, when my tongue gets dry, after walking a long way on the pitched road, with my slipper straps torn, I enter a booth and pick up the receiver to make him a call. Oh, as if I am slacking my thirst with a green coconut in one sip on my straw lips. Gigolo. I watch him from a distance. The young guy standing at Free School Street with a hanky tied to his right hand. Tall in height, he appears to be a sailor unknown. Upon his deep blue t-shirt glows a shining line. If being sexy is a crime, arrest me soon. The girls beside measure him with an oblique look. Some of them lick their lips, as if it's a storm in the wild desert, where snakes crawl with hissing sounds. Such is blazing pain all over the pores of the body. Halogen flashing serially on the pavement's night descents, as if with endless froths from the corks of champagne. The night, which is also a woman fasting, beckoning the boy from inside of a black car and then taking him in it, starts towards no destination. A day in a shopping mall. As soon as I push myself in through the glass door, two silky sylphs come floating like the bubbles of water. Most welcome, sir. Just take this in your finger. This is the key to Trade Town, and walk with your trolley. All around there are so many tinsel offers displayed. If you get an item elsewhere less costly, you will get twice as much the margin. If you buy a bed sheet, your sleep at night is assured. In each of your eyelids will come wavy and foamy dose. If you purchase condom in bulk for the whole year, you will get 25% discount on each weekend tour. From the leaping parts of my credit card, I see our joys and sorrows, smiles and tears, when I know not, are sold out like frozen fishes in the packet. It's beyond 9 o'clock. As night falls, lights are off. When coming out, few others whisper mildly. If you procure love in your hand, along with that, your deep sighs are free. An Egyptian folktale. Don't throw stones at a fellow who truly loves you. Those stones will come back to you someday or other. It is in an Egyptian folktale, the written version in the proverb. But you did not obey it. Rather, as a very fast lover, you ditched him, leaving him alone. Putting chewing gum casually in your mouth at 8 o'clock past 10 in the morning, you are crossing the quiet desert. No mirage is visible, only broken skeletons of camels lie scattered here and there. Sometimes after, the sun will look like a ruthless hammer. After pulling out from your rucksack the last bottle of soft drinks, you being exhausted will roll on the ground senseless. Since when regained, you listen to the wind of the storm. It's the curse of the god of sands and deserts. Throughout your life, you will all alone go to a searching water. You will earn money, enjoy solvency, but never you will get a beloved. A little mag, an advertisement. Whenever it is published, it should first of all contain a prose from whose every alphabet would emit ashes of lava, brittle, endless, which will slowly engulf the contemporary Bengali poetry. After this, there would be a round table, a few young poets participating, as if an interview among some crickets. They will be printed intact, as if they are caught in a tape recorder. Immediately after, there are poems of those who are composing very recently. A poem of one each, nothing more, nothing less. But in each is traceable each one's quaver of heartbeat, ECG report, separately identifiable. The last article is to include review of books. In present issue, an elderly poet who died long since 17 years ago is from that the time onwards waiting for his rebirth. While reading him, the readers will come to feel someone is opening the lid of the coffin and putting his hand upon the shoulder. One very strange poem that is, just a minute. The recipe of a poem. First, remove the husk of words, then put them in a ceramic pot. Let them wet in tears, say around 10 minutes. Then when the mazes in the salt take the shapes of granules, fire up the oven and fry them a little in cooking oil. After this, cutting the vein of your right forefinger, spill a drop of blood and prepare with flour a tasty gravy. Add spices as required. In the way deer dance along the horizon in heavy monsoon night, musk scented, in the like manner mix and blend secretly the rhythm of their stepping motion. Now spread over the surface of the roasted words with fresh coriander and green lemon, while hot, like the roundish petals of lotus. Serve them in white papers, and the readers will taste them, saying fantastic. Another two poems. One is Feng Shui. I think all of you know that Feng Shui is a traditional art of China and Japan. Now, Feng Shui. Let us listen to what the Feng Shui experts advise the middle-aged couples suffering from depression. 1. Just place 3 crystal balls at the northeast corner of the room. They may tone up the warmth of relationship. 2. That dragon over there, for its tail and shoulder, just buy an iron rod. On the bed of sleeping chamber, it will tease the body with a lightning flash at the dead of the night. 3. Then after a long stretch of time, the fairy tale begins. Purchase for this a golden ship with sails, which like a dolphin will carry you on its back during intercourse to a grassy green island. 4. Do you think what to carry with you? Just touch upon the laughing smile of Buddha. If all this fail, then in a winter afternoon, on opening the west window, let the aged couple look at the sunset only. And the last poem, just a minute. It's a peculiar poem, and the name of the poem is Scarecrows or the Divorcee Woman. As the insectivorous plants catch and swallow up the worms, some of the divorcee women are just like this. They set up traps for male fox. Heated desert burn in one of their eyes, and there is shadow of only one thorny date palm. In their other eyes swells up the ocean of full moonlight, and upon it floats one quiet sailing boat. At midnight burning on the slides of their lonely beds, they happen to recollect for how many days they didn't take bath well, as if thick dust is deposited all over the bodies. Does a spider continue to cast its net around the vagina or lower part of the bird body? Some of them see a dream during their sleep. In the fading light of a tender afternoon, on the extended paddy field, there stands up a scarecrow, which with a fixed glance and lime-painted eyes look at a stretch. After their sleep being over and sitting for sometimes calmly, they come to understand that none but they themselves are the real scarecrows. Among them, some are standing, spreading their two hands here and there, tiringly, and waiting for the moment when a lonely bird will sit upon their shoulders as a surprise. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Greetings. I've recently pulled together some of my poems into a collection I've tentatively called Selected Poems 1970 to 2020. This first poem, and these are all at random, so there's no theme. First poem is actually the first poem that I put in the first book that I published called Grave Lines. The first man I killed. The first man I killed was small and hidden in the tall grass. Being a killer forever changes you. Even if you learn to be kind and considerate and civilized, that part of you is always hiding down inside, awaiting a chance. A normal person does not want to kill and will avoid it at all cost. The military won't allow you to remain normal. Doesn't matter if you think you're smart enough not to get caught up in their lies. They will change you. Don't be sucked into the biggest myth and lie that dying for your country is somehow heroic. Really be all that you can be. This is a poem I wrote for my daughter, Karen. When my daughter came out to me, you were the first of my children to find your way to who you are. I know you were unsure about what my response would be, since I also was coming slowly out of my Pentecostal wander, but love of you clearly outweighed any lifeless dogma. I have loved the women who you have loved, even though some of them didn't deserve you. I have gained another daughter through you, even though you and she have gone separate ways. You once pointed out to me that life is just a bowl of Larrys. I have learned that to know poetry, I must write poems. You seem to have learned that to know love, you must love. This is the epigraph on this poem is from Roman poet Catullus. It's Dami Bazia Mile. Kiss me 1,000 times over. Kiss of life. Kiss of death. Kiss the band. Kiss a horse at the end of the movie. Kiss of Judas. Kiss my ass. Kiss it goodbye. Kiss it and make it better. Kiss and make up. Kiss her until she be wearied out. Kiss and tell. Kiss your sister. Kiss your mother. Kiss your brother. Kiss the sky. Kiss me. And I think it was Bill Nevins who posted something on Cultivating Voices, a link to people who are collecting pandemic poems. So I wrote this one. It's called Pandemos, for all the people. Pestilence, plague, murrain, affliction, blight, scourge. In a caring voice, Big Pharma asks if COVID-19 has interfered with your ability to pay for your medicines while charging $1,200 for a vial of insulin. Fighting back, the people plan a powerful spring offensive of signing harsh petitions. Open coffins blossom. Open coffins blossom for those missing in action. From blood fertilized streets, rusty water flows from the faucets. God remains muted on Zoom. If there is a them, then there is an us to blame them. A hungry man had to pay a hefty fine and is banned from going to Yellowstone National Park for 2 years after cooking a chicken in one of the hot springs. Masked obituary every hour for the new dead. This one is Summer in Siberia. The tundra has held its breath these many thousand years, now awakened by a warm day, is belching and bellowing, exhaling carbon dioxide and methane instead of rolling over, sinking back into the dark night. The temperature today in Verkhoyansk, normally one of the coldest spots on Earth, was 104 degrees. Not noticing auroral colors dancing in the sky above. Hope on the 19th year of a peace vigil. As I return week after week, hoping that some driver speeding by will give some thought to the sign I hold, hoping their mind is not sealed to possibilities, hoping that they can maybe shed tears for the pain of people they don't know, hoping they can open their minds and hearts, abandoning any fear of strangers. I can only hope that it is not rude to put my ideas in someone else's head. Over time, passing citizens have stopped giving us the single-digit half of a peace sign. We continue knowing that imagining peace is like the blind trying to discover color. Difficult, but what still needs to be done as I return week after week. I had a new right knee replacement first part of November. Just over a week post-op, not yet ready to tackle the uneven ground on my new knee, the wine cap mushrooms tempt me from the lower garden. My brother-in-law, who has had 2 new knees, says we're not old, just older. In my mind, I'm as nimble as a circus acrobat, but I know the mortality rate for a broken hip in my age cohort is pretty high, and the wet grass is high enough to trip me. My wife agrees that she can hear my new plastic and titanium knee click whenever I walk. Unfortunately, this will limit my secret stealth ability. I was in Afghanistan a few years ago with a group teaching people how to make biosand water filters. And I wrote this. I was in Bamiyan. Buddhas of Bamiyan. Cold dust blows down the Hindu Kush past the sacred space chipped from the sandstone where for over 1,000 years the Buddhas of Bamiyan used to rest. Mirza Hussain was a 26-year-old prisoner. Taliban commanders ordered him to plant explosives among the famous statues, which were detonated amid shouts of Allah Akbar. After the explosions, a quiet pile of rubble. Potatoes grow in the near fields, sightless eyes growing in the dark, silent witness to the destruction. After drinking the bitter water flowing down the mineral-rich mountains, children walk out of their childhood into diarrhea and the distant rumble of war. This is called Grenade Up Close and Personal. Exploding a few feet away, background ringing in both ears seems more pressure than sound amidst the ambush. Meatball surgery, grenade fragments deftly tug loose with a small hemostat. A gloved finger softly feels for any hidden pieces as blood slowly pulses out onto the already red clay ground. Trimming a jagged wound, scalpel meets the slight resistance of living skin and fascia, slicing sound of edges readied for suture. A simple purple heart rather than a mention on a black granite wall. And my final one, American capitalist empire is on its knees, gasping its near to last plutonium breath, following the death rattle of every other empire. Be quiet. Sorry about that. Boy soldiers still wipe out regiments of civilians sleeping quietly in their homes in lands we covet. But America stands naked, blinking on the world stage, turgid, mad missiles wilting in the bright spotlight. The American dream lies exposed for what it is. No longer does the world quiver when US cock crows. The self-appointed sheriff is seen as the cattle rustler, a blood-red mask to hide behind at the end of the movie. Ding dong, the witch is dead. The spell has been broken. Thank you.
Bravo.
You're good.
Okay. Am I on? Hi, Cindy.
You're good. Go ahead. You're good.
Go? Okay. Yeah, it's weird. I don't see myself on the screen, so you know. 3 poems. I'll keep them going quick. This one's from this book. No prisoners. What can I say? We met in Santa Fe. They've got everything they need. They're an artist, and they knew John Berryman. Poets are worse than lawyers, they said. Worse than mosquitoes, like those big flying cucarachas down south they get in your hair. Poets tell you stories about anarchist painters who won't take cash from the cruel corporate state, so they live in boxes made of cardboard under bridges, without berets, without brushes, without canvas stretchers, without grants, without patrons, without brushes. Poets, they said, are like syrup on a pancake. They soak in until they wipe out all the taste of the pancake itself and fill it with words, sweet, sticky words. Poets make everybody else taste what they taste, they sighed. We hate fucking poets, they said. First, they hissed, after the revolution, we'll kill all the poets. Mario Buddha, spelled B-U-D-A, set off the first deadly car bomb on Wall Street in 1919. He became a follower of Benito Mussolini. They called it Buddha's wagon. Also, a very wise Zen koan goes, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. This poem, with apologies to the singer Neil Young, is called Buddha's Wagon, Sex and the Car Bomb, Marching Forth, 2021. Poor Ashley, Air Force vet, bankrupt nuke plant slave, would-be soldier of Cowboy Coy Griffin's True Q crew, had a cowboy problem herself that she really never knew. That January 6th afternoon in DC, you see, she rode bareback a mad stallion of delusion that whispered, babe, the storm is near. But there's nothing a patriot need fear. So she plunged through a shattered US Capitol window, chasing her dark dream towards some mirage of light, to her harsh blackout end of life, to find what she sought as bloated Daddy Trump gloated at what his words had wrought. Don't tread on me, hissed the snake flags flown then and now. And what if you did know her and found her dead on the floor, a bloody Trump flag draped over her, looking her final best, a cop's .40 caliber slug through her chest? Would you mourn? Would you kneel and pray for her? Or might you just load up a pickup with fertilizer like Bomber Martyr McVie? Take off your mask and holler, okay, boys, let's roll. As go one, so go all, as you hum your horrid horsed vessel marching song. Hitler's ghost, cowboyed up like Rowdy Yates on wagon train, Stetson cocked on his head, rebel flag and big gun in his hand, rolling down that road to Santa Fe or Washington, D.C., a seditious Siddhartha seeking to Buddha be. Seeking Satori in blood and fire, lusting, dear Lord, for you to kill him, not with a flood this time, but with fire and sweet Jesus, if you only knew, it will feel like horse shit scraped off your shoe. And this this final poem is called is titled. It has well, the poem has a preface line by Comrade Edward Abbey. Better a cruel truth than a comfortable delusion. And the poem is titled, "The gorilla must move amongst the people as a fish swims in the sea. Desert rose, desert fell. Desert was once a great big swell, a salty old sea. Those snakes that swim, they can tell when the waters fall or rise, when the last desert rose will fall." Gracias.
Thanks, Bill, and thanks to all the readers in our first set this afternoon. We got a little bit of a late start for those of you over in Facebook, so I'm going to get right to introducing our next set of readers. First, we have joining us for the first time on Cultivating Voices live poetry is Ron Bremner. R. Bremner writes of incense, peppermints, and the color of time in such venues as International Poetry Review, Anthem, a Leonard Cohen tribute anthology, Jerry Jazz Musician, Patterson Literary Review, Climate of Opinion, Sigmund Freud in Poetry, and others. Ron has published 7 books of poetry, including Absurd from Cajun Mutt Press and Hungry Words from Alien Buddha Press. And he has thrice won honorable mention in the Allen Ginsberg Awards. Well, following Ron will be Marian Lovett, who is an arts writer based in Sligo in the northwest of Ireland. In the 90s, as co-director of Artworking Public Art Agency, she initiated the Connect Public Art Project, which commissioned together artists and poets from the Republic of Ireland and the North of Ireland to make site-specific art and text works, which were situated in and around the Dublin to Belfast train route. This was before the Good Friday Agreement, and the project forged real and lasting connections between artists and writers on both sides of the political divide. From 2016 to 2018, she was the co-editor of the relaunched Circa Art magazine. And for the last 2 years, she has steadily developed her own poetry practice and is working on her debut collection. This is her 4th time reading with us on Cultivating Voices live open mic. And I want to just say very quickly a shout out. She gifted me a beautiful gift of a Van Bolen's final collection of poetry, The Historians, which I just treasure it. And so thank you for that. I wanted to say that publicly. And if you haven't gotten that collection yet of Van Bolen's, it's well worth the investment. Well, following Marian, we will be going from the west of Ireland to the west of the United States. Ken Burch was born in 1960, is a retired Alaska Marine highway crewman, sometimes actor, musician, grandparent, and the surviving spouse of a great poet. He is also trying to put all of this and the world it happens in into a few words. He resides in Olympia, Washington. And right nearby, Ken, is Bill Fay, a retired program manager and poet who has been published in numerous journals. His recent chapbook, Passages, Immigrant Experiences, from 2020 from Fox Island Press was written to advocate for immigrants, the warp and weft of the American tapestry. His next chapbook, Hymns of the Homeless, in this year, also from Fox Island Press, will advocate for the homeless on American streets. Bill holds degrees in fine arts, electrical engineering, and business administration. He lives with his wife and their two bodacious cats, Tucker and Annie, on Fox Island in the Puget Sound near Seattle. And our final reader today will be Marcella Remund, a native of Omaha, Nebraska, and a South Dakota transplant, where she teaches at the University of South Dakota in Vermilion, South Dakota. Marcella's poems have appeared in numerous journals and anthologies, and she is the author of 2 books of poetry. The Sea is My Ugly Twin from Finishing Line Press in 2018, and The Book of Crooked Prayer from Finishing Line Press in 2020. We heard her read from that in our new book showcase. In addition to her own writing and university teaching, Marcella has been teaching writerly classes and giving presentations in public community education settings for more than 20 years. These classes include a wide range of subjects, including beginning creative writing, journaling, dream journaling, and an introduction to the Magdalene laundries of Ireland, and more. Would you welcome our next set of poets to Cultivating Voices Live Poetry? And Ron, you're up.
Okay. I'd like to start with 2 poems from my book, Hungry Words, out on Alien Buddha Press. I am most comfortable in graveyards. There is no pressure to impress, no call to spout witticisms, no maudlin cynicism to cut and cheer, no knowing looks to batter and bruise. Just me, and friends who won't mind if I rest on their laurels. Sit here on the cold ground of autumn under steel gray skies with them. I can sympathize with their lives and listen to their stories. They won't shrink for my verse. They won't text while I read. They listen intently with respect and admiration. This is the best home I could have. These are the finest companions. I am most comfortable in graveyards. And this book has 2 Fibonacci poems in it. Fibonacci, as you know, goes by syllables from 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, etc. It's each line is has the number of syllables of the previous 2 lines put together. The longest one is 89 syllables, but I won't do that one. This one is it hits a max of 34 syllables. This is Havana Moon. We both under Havana's smiling cherry moon fibbed to each other's anxious selves as we bent against the time and tide that soon ran out. Before we could realize that maybe, just maybe, this was the real truth we pined for. And that has a dedication to Chuck Berry. For the next 2 poems, I'd like to take you to Greenwich Village in Manhattan, New York. This is called Medusa, and it's dedicated to Jean Ray. The swivel of your smile turned men to stone, but it was not snakes in your hair. It was the twang in your eyes and the tangle of your lips that damaged so many irreparably. Night black hair coiled like a cobra about to strike. Yes, Cinnamon Girl, you California cowgirl in the sand who migrated east and traipsed the gritty village sidewalks with your many conquests trailing behind, waiting to fall at your feet at the snap of your finger cymbals. Did you enjoy your royalty? The Queen of Thompson Street, your subjects prostrate before you. I heard you once at the Phil Oakes Memorial Concert in 1976. You strapped on your Stratocaster, rocked and rolled the place with an electrifying version of Small Circle of Friends. All the great performers that day, you were still the queen. I wish I had known you in your Medusa days, but then I'd be a pillar of stone now. And that poem has a postscript. Neil Young's songs Cinnamon Girl and Cowgirl in the Sand were both written about Jean Ray, half the folk singing duo Jim and Jean. Phil Oakes slept on her couch on Thompson Street for several months. Because she wouldn't marry him, he married her best friend. And she mesmerized just about every straight male in the West Village in the 1960s. And that's from my chapbook, Pencil Sketches. And moving a little further west in the village, Mill's Tavern. Mill's Tavern was a seedy bar on Beaker Street in the heart of Greenwich Village. David Peel used to hold court there, doing a one-man show in between his rounds of drinking and whatever. Who killed Brian Jones? He crooned one night, his voice like Swiss cheese strained through sandpaper. Was it one of the Rolling Stones? As he pondered that mystery, I sat with my schizophrenic Filipina girlfriend. She was tiny and gorgeous and very mentally ill. Frank Mill himself came to our table to take our order. That's what beauty can do. He ordered absinthe, which I didn't think was legal, but damn if Frank Mill didn't disappear behind the wall and reappear with a tiny glass for the tiny lady. He even bowed. Then he had to rush away on his mismatched legs to deal with a rowdy drunk twice his size. Frank Mill gripped him by the shoulders, lifted him up, and booted him in the behind. Don't let me see you in here again, Frank Mill bellowed. Though protesting loudly, the drunk knew he was overmatched and left with Frank Mill glaring at him. This is the kind of place you take me to? My companion asked. As David Peel sang, David Peel is dead, David Peel is dead, David Peel is dead, she nodded at him and said, he is spying on me for my enemies. And that was no joke. This lady never joked. We made our exit to the cool street with me wondering how on earth I could protect my lady from her deadly self. And I have a book of absurdist poems called Appropriately Absurd out on Cajun Mutt Press. I love absurdism. Some people don't. So I'll only read, I think, one from this book. This is called Todd. Some hanky-panky wondered what's inside a girl when a date with Elvis cramped like Trojan Hector saying bye-bye to bad days. A rocket from the crypt into my fleshy liver brought me back home to a dancing vibrator that got so excited about an equal stooge. The raw power of the prisoner is a dog without a bone, holding back a reason to say, "You look unwell." I want to take her home. I just can't forget about that girl who's a bombshell from the punishment zone that, that detours downline in a coffin dagger. She's rare and well done when she rides a black sheep to Desdemona on the bad side of a cheap trick. So anyway, I'm hurting on the bottle at an elite hotel in either Las Vegas or Portland, Oregon. When your arms stay open late and you don't care if tomorrow never comes to a New York City bowling alley bar at dawn with most of the pizza and raspberries gone. I say a one-time goodbye to my high beams, but Del Shannon, an accidental hipster, starts running on back to a sky full of holes. You say, hang in there. But I say, it's my life. And why can't I have a rich woman with a truer heart who will teach me a new kind of mambo in the fire of a lover's curse? Next weekend, the readers' wives will go wild in the head for a sinner, not a saint, who is moving in the river. And my wife is a lady from Sri Lanka, and she has written extensively about the Civil War, and she's also a terrific artist, and she has made several paintings about the Civil War. And these two poems are ekphrasis of those paintings. First one is called Crucifixion. Peek through the curtains, the broken walls, the soiled canopy. Beyond the ghosts of ravaged souls, see if you dare the source of the savagery. The crucifixion of a people, crucifixion of a dream, crucifixion of all hope, crucifixion of 10,000 lives. And the second ekphrastic poem is called Chambers. And this is for the people of the Vani, especially for the children of the Vani, an area of Sri Lanka which was the last stronghold of the Tamil forces in the Civil War and suffered greatly. Chambers of a heart have quickly frozen, while worlds outside these copper walls today pick and choose their secrets of the fray for skeletons and corpses randomly chosen. Among the scattered rat droppings we play, such is this war's unfettered decay. Thank you. And I'd like to do one now from the Red Wheelbarrow. Red Wheelbarrow poets are a great group of poets. They're located in northern New Jersey, and they hold a reading the first Wednesday of every month, and you can look them up. They're on Facebook. Look up Friends of the Red Wheelbarrow, and hopefully we'll see some of you at the next reading. This one's called the Joe Bono Barbershop. At a barbershop in Nutley, New Jersey, autographed photos of a beaming Connie Francis line the wall. She smiles down at us from all stages of her career. Many different years, remarkably same and sane hairdo. I do not think that Connie Francis ever had her sane hair cut in this male bastion of a barbershop. But maybe, just maybe, a young Conchetta Franco Nero accompanied her boyfriend, Walden Casoto, errand for a haircut at Joe Bono's barbershop, before splish-splashing insanely in a bath. It's possible. After all, everybody's somebody's fool. And the postscript of that poem is that the stage name of Walden Casoto was Bobby Darin. And I don't know how I'm doing on time here, whether I have time for one or two more. Okay. This one, I was very fortunate. It won honorable mention in the Allen Ginsberg Awards. And I'm very grateful to Maria Gillen for that. Called She Wore a Raspberry Beret. She wore a raspberry beret in Hermosa Beach, spring of 1986. Number 37, 19th Street, side beach view. 4 apartments, an old but sturdy 2-story white block building. She had the place beneath mine. There was an apartment sale, her roommate moving out. I bought a toaster and fell for her right then and there. I gave her some sappy line about not knowing such a beautiful lady lived just downstairs. What a day, she said. I not only sold the toaster, I got a wonderful compliment as well. She was my first stewardess. I was her first writer. I was writing for Continental Airlines at the time. She flew for United. Without her roommate, she felt empty, but she hated nightlife. We spent the night lounging on the couch. KCRW, The Cool and the Crazy, Michael Oakes' Archives Alive, and Joe Frank's Miserable Monotone Adventures. So it went for weeks. She didn't cook. I didn't cook. It was eggs and sandwiches all week. It was Miguel's Burrito House for Saturday lunch. And riding in her little red Corvette up to El Segundo to the Red Onion for Sunday dinner. Always wearing her raspberry beret. Then back to the beach house for more KCRW. I was her first writer. She was my first and last stewardess. Till the transfer came up. Paris, and more money too. She couldn't say no. Goodbye, LAX. You can come out to see me, she said. You work for Continental. And I'll come to LAX once a month. She drove away in her little red Corvette, wearing that raspberry beret. I quit Continental in a week. Goodbye, KCRW. Goodbye, The Cool and the Crazy. Goodbye, Michael Oakes' Archives Alive. Joe Frank's monotone followed me east, but the raspberry beret didn't. Except that, years later, if Prince is on the radio, I can almost reach out and touch it. Thanks. And I'll only do one more. We'll go back to the cemetery in Lyndhurst, New Jersey for this. This one is a true story. This one hurts a little. My cousin Joey found in a locked car in the cemetery, with a bullet hole in his head. Police ruled it a suicide. We have our doubts. It's called a trial of language. He and his sister were variable antonyms. Though both counted out their words, only he tried to spell them. She believed no tonic speech, but the loudest of mumbles. Neither realized the climactic impotence of words in time. After the shock of his terse death, she learned the language of gestures. Parents still don't understand. They seek words to trust. We have tried, but cautious eloquence does not fool them. She will not talk to them. She plans to survive. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Okay, am I loud and clear?
You're great.
Okay, that's good. I've got 4 poems, maybe 5. The first one is a meditative kind of nature poem. Since I've been getting out into the wild a lot, mostly as a kind of an antidote to lockdown, which continues here in Ireland. So it's called The Fearful Fern. I'd stopped the bike at Highwood when I spied it, a single nascent fern, its pale green tendrils trembling as it sat forlorn, half dazed, atop a frozen dry stone wall. The nerve of it, to grow from some stray seed until it pushed its tips right through the narrow gap between the dimpled, corpulent rocks, only to be greeted by the wind, the snow, the leaden sky. Amazed, I looked again. This perfect trembling fern, fearful but not afraid as it braved the cold, the world, the impending storm. Okay. My second poem is about the death of a dog and the guilt that follows. It's called Ghost Dog. Bonnie always barks whenever we pass the spot where Butch was felled, clipped by the wing of our dove grey car that veered too far to the left, while he, a seasoned soul, Jack Russell, with stiffened legs and ragged ears, erred to the right. Too late. Car and dog collided. Only a dull thud alerted us to his impending death. We pulled over our smart Chevy just in time to see his short, squat canine body oozing blood. We saw terror in his warm brown eyes. Before his final breath, he whimpered loud, then let out one last rasping gasp. We wrapped him in black polythene and left a note on their windscreen. We never told our children, but Bonnie knows we killed her kin, and that is why she barks whenever we drive past that cursed, dog-forsaken place where Butch met his demise. So I think we still feel very guilty about that. Okay, this one is called, it's called Lavender Wax, and I have to preface it with a note because I wrote it in response to an interview that an Irish poet did actually on radio, and her name is Mary Call. And actually around the time of the Mother and Baby Homes Report was released recently in Ireland, and Mary's poem called Laundry went viral actually, and it's a very powerful poem. And following on from that, she was on the radio and she was actually telling how she only got to meet her birth mother when her elderly mother was, I think she was maybe in her mid-80s. And it was a very overwhelming experience, but the memory she takes of it was when her mother related the moment at which she realized that her baby was being taken from her. So this is called Lavender Wax. The convent staircase was elaborate, dark wood, carved, quite ornate, and I knew its every creak and crevice, my back half broken from the daily polishing. We used Malone's lavender wax and yellow cleaning cloths. I was 18 and she was just 3 months old, already with a head of hair and the loveliest of long eyelashes. And I was polishing the banisters when Sister Mary came and said, she's going now. Then gone, my girl, my precious firstborn, without so much as a by your leave. My stomach heaved. I fell on the stairs. I can still smell the polish, a soft lavender wax that came in a round flat tin and you weren't to use too much of it. No, by your leave, they never asked. Years later, I can't abide that purple color, the whiff of polishing wax, the smell of lavender. Okay, so that was poem number 2. All right, just give me one moment. Yeah, this particular poem is it's a celebratory poem to mark Lá Fhéile Rida. That's the Irish for the Feast of St. Bridget, that very powerful saint in Irish mythology, who is, of course, an icon for all feminists. So I like to think of it as being a kind of a rousing poem and indeed a celebratory one. So it's called Bridget's Mantle, or Lá Fhéile Rida. Finally February, a gossamer gloom enfolds the fields and dims the mid-noon light. But this day, most sacred in our calendar, gives a glimmer, a flicker of energy powered by a shadow memory that hovers and becomes a cloak of woven worsted, deepest blue, the brathog of Bridget, worn by she who so cannily outfoxed the livid lord, whose spurious offer of as much ground only as her cloak would cover was only ever meant with cruel, deliberate intent. But the brath, each thread enthralled to her command, thrown wide and aided by the snow of early spring, spread each thread of it and grew like magic lichen that knew the earth it sought and found, then wound around the oak-edged site that would provide best shelter for a church. And all knew her vision for it. It would become a place of kindness, giving, learning, love, compassion, the imparting of knowledge, the trust of instinct, truth, a place where women's worth and wisdom would be revered, all hallowed. Ha, Bridget, the promise proffered in jest was honored. She bested him, my mother's words. She loved the way the wool was pulled. And now, on your day, and in this your month, I see your strength in every woman who fights, cajoles, charms, connives, asserts, makes and cuts cloth, mostly according to measure, by whose ancient lore and songs of other linger, holding sway, long after the snow of Arach has seeped deep into the soil, enriching the groundwater. So I think it's time for just one slight, just a little, okay, a slight little one, I suppose honoring couples, okay? So this is called On Seeing a Pair of Swans Grace the Lake Today at Noon. I've observed them over days. See now, sometimes they sail off in other directions, busying themselves with work, they're young or finding food, the essential business of lake living. I've noticed how they give each other the necessary space, maintain a healthy distance, but always they come back together. If not for lunch, they'll try for dinner in the evening time. So that's me done, guys. Such a pleasure to be here, okay? And Happy Bridget's Day. For those of you not so familiar with that particular feast, do the Googling, because yeah, Bridget's an icon, okay? Good night.
Hello,
Okay.
good to be here. Let me pull my word pages here and we'll get started. Well, the old thing they always say to writers is write from your experience, and this was my experience in December. It's in a series of haiku form poems. Blazing through my arm, searing message shouts itself. This time it's for you. In the room, they said, you were right. That's what it was, is. You have got to stay. 3 more days of tests. Shave my chest, then open that which feeds my poems. Extra veins they found for the ones my choices had taken out of use. Later, as my eyes opened after what, though hours, seemed to flash to me, something not the same, nothing ever quite could be. What then is the next? Second one, and this is going to be over, by the way, 2 short poems, and then there'll be a longer thing at the end. This is the second fairly short one, and this one I just wrote beforehand. It was kind of a meditation on cutting it close. In the last hours before this is read, it was written. That's how it is, how it was, how it had to be. The chronology runs itself a race. In the last hour before we were born, we were formed. That's how we are, what we were, who will be. The natality beats the deadline. In the last hour before what is done, it is thought. That's how you know, how you hear, how you teach the moment when it is yours. And this last one, this is longer. This is the beginning of this is the intro of a verse play I'm working on. It'll have verse form and some other forms. It's about the playwright. It's about the director and actor and best known singer and songwriter Victor Jara, who was the great singer of Chile. And it's the introduction of, it's the idea of a person coming back from a long time in the void, being summoned back and finding words when you've gone a long time with no words and a long time without being you. Something. Did I hear? Can I hear? So long in this place. Is this a place? And if so, what? And for how long? How many seconds, hours, days, months, decades? How long here, wherever here is? How long since my legs could dance, my arms could hold an object, a hollow shape, a vessel of sounds, as somehow, somewhere it was mine to do that. How far from the times in when my hands could be used, could feel other than the ache they endlessly feel in the darkness, in the nothing. Is this my voice? Are these words? How do I know them? What causes me now to speak? What reminds me how to speak? How do I know what any of these words mean in a place of no place, in this here that is not a here in any sense in which in any place ever was? How long have I been in the nothing of this place? how many measures of time beyond my counting, how many verses void of verse followed in endless sequence have gone past. Something calls me, someone calls me, someone in some place beyond the endless cold nullity, which has been all that was left of me since the times I see and cannot see, since the moment of what? Of when? Since the times when there was something I was part of, something more than the I that I was, something that was part of so much, so many what, so much what, so past what I retained, what I could know of, what I could see in the days when I was part of the times when the sounds, can I bring back the sounds? Can I know what they were, what made them, the object of sound, its voice, the voices of all things brought together from that called wood, which rises in its time from the nurturing layer beneath what had been my feet, in the time when I was where I was, rising from that, rising from what is below, from what I had to learn more words, more meanings of words, return now from where? To provide warmth, shelter from heat, from light. When light does harm, places in which some live. Silk, that word returns to, made from the casings in which one creature gaining wings flew off on its truth, shapes as absent of sound as wherever I have been, yet when coiled by devices formed in the mind, made by the hands of soul who could see what could be brought to birth, sheets of luminescence in one form, thin lengthy coils which, when stretched to full extension, arranged in a proper sequence, combined with other extensions of clear materials, in the hands of a woman, one close to me, one from which I emerged, one whom now somehow I see. Far past, I hear somewhere a room with a cross, boards fused in opposite directions, a figure's pain tied to the boards, the details of each agony, each indignity carved in the figure's symbol of comfort, of conquest, of love, of theft, of what was. Cylinders of wax lit at the top, light that is not still, is not solid, glints in and of the scented shadows, men in robes repeating phrases to one not there, yet they say there, the unseen hexagon of wood within which a small, still shape, flowers wrapped round to share the journey, hands placed together, of one once here, one who cried, laughed just for short years, just for months, just for days, just for hours. Now say the men in the robes, risen to forever, if anywhere at all, no money for a doctor for some, no money for food, no money for heat to warm the first days in most families. This shape in this box will not be the only shape in the only box for the only time too soon. And the voices of the woman voice of the woman rising in the lingering clouds of frankincense and myrrh lifts the weight for the moment, eases the soul ache, which will never fully depart, sings the souls of the ones who did not stay long at all in this place, where they would stay for days on days on days, past knowing. I should like to say that the imagery in the last part of that, which I don't know if I made it clear in introducing it. Thank you. It was the image of Victor remembering as a child that his mother would play and sing at the funerals of children, which happened a lot. He was raised on a farm in Chile. And I'm working on that and trying to, it's like Victor is dead at the beginning of this because he had a horrible death. He was beaten to death in the coup. They broke his hands because he played guitar. I've probably said too much on that now, but anyway, I wanted to just say that because I might have introduced that better. Thank you all.
I think it's me.
Okay, Bill.
Okay, it is me.
It is
All
you.
right. All right. Okay. You hear me fine? All right. Okay. All right. We'll have some experiments and some protests and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So the first one is a confluence of the greatest romantic poet of China, Li Po, and one of the most famous poems of a modernist, T.S. Eliot. So there's going to be a string of anxiety through this, and yet there are going to be some wonderful romantic nature images, which I can claim a little bit of credit for. So the love song of Li Po. A poem of wind chimes, etherized upon the singing rivers, of soft disclaimers, for there will be time to count the stars and nodding trees, to drink the fog that licks the air, and hold the wine-washed moonbeams stare on this sweet stream bank. All the mountains come and go with the seasons of Li Po. Not a time of overwhelming questions, indecision, revision, contrition, in the flower of the pale moon's vision, a time of overwhelming becoming. But how shall I presume to know them all? The newborn clouds scudding on winding waltz, flung over valleys from mountain prominence, above flute-tuned wildflower confusions. All reflections come and go in the secrets of Li Po. But would it have been worthwhile after all to drink the drama of life's river bend, sleep on sweet mosses and then comprehend reflected mayflies in their afterthoughts? And yet this is not what I meant at all. When morning mists mold the drowsy myrtle in words nonverbal yet universal, beyond the flowing borders of heaven, will all the tidelands ebb and flow from the verses of Li Po. I do not think they will sing to me when mermaid wave tops comb back star sea shores with phosphor vapors and edgewater amours, aroused by moonlit shadowed destinies. There will be time to count the stars and sighing waves, ending before the tide finds itself home along this brilliant mirror. All the echoes come and go with the dreaming of Li Po. Okay, now I get to do it. Does that mean I don't have time, or is... Okay, all right. Okay, so now I'll throw in, because it's almost obligatory. This was recently published. This is a COVID poem, Visitation. It hid in butterfly wings, silkworm mouths, and the spinnerets of black widows, in the preening feathers of birds on screensavers, in baby carriages with ribbons and bows, in bridal gowns between the folds. Shook the rag doll bony fingered, bewitched neighbors to strangers and strangers to enmity, clung to dorms, doormen, dowagers unheard, flew on shuttlecocks like showy singing birds, on the edge of teardrops, home to harried eyes in the Black Forest and North Sea sunrise. Rode grocery carts and prescription warnings, kissed children in their kindergarten mornings, tripped kitchen corner window pane alarms, charged the drawers of roll-top desks with charms, rattled naked nations with tendrils, words, winds, and wonders, pushed in tongues and vapors, entwined on flowered fingers, perched in whitewashed windows, the sleeping adder's stinger, remembering closed lips of tulips too cold to touch. So that's it, the obligatory COVID poem. Now I'm gonna. So I wrote this one like, I don't know, 4 months ago, and then a weird thing happened at the Capitol. That would be the U.S. Capitol. And I wrote this in a series that's called Today's Lessons, and there are a series of lesson poems. This one has a little bit. It's written around a cooking recipe ostensibly, but it really is a commentary on the Holocaust, on today's lesson on nationalism. Begin by sprinkling the sphere in heroism. To Odysseus in Homer's Ilium, to Abraham on the Jordan River, to Romulus in the ancient Forum, to Cassius behind Caesar's murder. Followed by dicing the world in dogmatism, in washing the sandals of fishermen, in holy eyes of holy Galilee, in hoary cloven feet of wizardry, the carts trundle through the scripture readings. In vectors of wind, visions of Vishnu, in Zoroaster's dream of duality, in yin and yang spirituality, the sumo wrestlers of hope and terror. And by boiling the orb in jingoism, to Schopenhauer on the defense team, to God is dead in Spinoza's pocket, to Nietzsche's child in the witness docket, the crack of sonic booms on a whip tip. Empty hooved horses marvel in the moonlight, flicking fire to the great bear at the gates of dawn, drawn by whispers to the temple, fervent prayers for God's Passover, while the sickles switched like horsetail hairs. It's a bit of a comment on nationalism. Okay. Okay, well, let's see, I'm rolling here. Which one do I want to do next? Oh, that's too fun. Oh, here it is. Okay. Then I did some experiments. I'm doing mostly experimental stuff here because I just jump around. I did some experiments after reading E.E. Cummings, which you can't help but experiment after you read E.E. Cummings. So I started to move some words around, and where you expect the noun to be, it isn't. But it ended up with some pretty, I thought, interesting images and rhythms. If this has no motion, then must is quite artful. Where knowledge has just left, then judgment is wistful. If no gives the warning for time to be tactful, when children are squall lines, repentant pretenders, if face is a card deck, which queens are contenders? Where like knows no romance, and the seems so formal, with chips on the fireplace and kings on the mantle, when thought has no widow and truth has no window, then if lived a braggart and when a good fellow, while tracing the corners where all led to science, and rattling the boxes spelled sleep to all silence. My where was forever asleep in the ashes, and home was pretentious, found just for the masses. When leaves were all newborns and stars were all foundlings, where rain lives forever and wind has no founding. If must has no motion, then these have no bounding. Keith, jump back. Do I still have some time to cause more trouble? One more, okay. Well, let's see here. Oh, okay. All right, okay. So we got some Irish folks here. I did some experiments in what they call flashing, freezing. I apologize. But it's a very structured form. And so this is a little short one. That has been picked up for a publication also. This is Einstein and Joyce in Ireland. A bit of a competition between two geniuses. In your mind, Einstein's walking with the attributes of thought. In your heart, Joyce is talking, existential tension taut. Pencil broken paperwork, sleepy Einstein's bending time. Howling of an introvert, brave Ulysses skipping rhyme. These two met where borders blend, where hearts and minds still can meet. Pub pints quenched by older men, words and numbers still compete. You can write a universe in an ordinary day. Tell me how the moons traverse, or this tab you'll surely pay. Joyce responds with scalding brands. Make our universe sublime. Do the math for holding hands in my heart and in your mind. Thank you.
Can you hear me? This has been so grand. I've really loved listening to the amazing breadth of styles of poetry today. It's just really been something. I just have 3 poems, and this first one, I'm working on a series of poems about the revelations of midlife. And so this first poem is called Midway, and it begins with an epigraph from a Joni Mitchell song, that song about the Midway. Excuse me, Midway. And a voice calls out the numbers, and it sometimes mentions mine. From a block or 2 off, all you see are lights and flashes. Your pupils pin, you tilt your head so the good ear catches the high striker bell and organ grinder honk and whine. Your mouth already tastes like cotton candy. Closer now, you get a whiff of elephant shit and maybe a little what? Frying cheese, beer vomit. You slow down but can't stop moving toward those lights. Soon, you're smack in the middle of the midway. Hawkers on both sides lean out, call your name, tempt you with nostalgia. Win this ballerina doll, Care Bear, My Little Pony, unicorn. Step right up. You dig in a pocket, but you're broke. You cross the street and buy a corn dog. Look back wistfully at your old neighborhood. The dimming glow of streetlights fuzzy, prettier than you remember. You can't go back to those familiar shadows. Movement further down the street, a few booths past the tilt-a-whirl catches your eye. A woman bends over a cane, unwraps and gums up a funnel cake. Beyond here, past the lights and bells, past clowns on stilts, popping kettle corn, the rank pacing tigers, the grate and grind of a Ferris wheel, past toothless carnies, swayback ponies, the street disappears in pitch black. Nowhere to go for now. You pull a shawl close around your shoulders and slow to a shuffle, stranded on the midway. Thank you. This next poem is a prose poem called No Space Between. It is possible for two objects to occupy the same space. For a butcher knife, let's say, with a carved walnut stalk, to lie in moldering leaves beneath the footpath of a mouse. For the mouse to leave a skittering blood trail of dots and dashes across the knife's broad blade. And for the mouse to be gone before you register its movement. Or for light from a crack in Venetian blinds to illuminate the rim of a deep open urn into which someone has poured the coarse, uneven ash that was once your dog or cat or grandfather. And for the light and dark to leave their imprint on your retina in the same microsecond before your brain senses the perfect paradox and you, in joy and sorrow, begin to weep. Or for a man to be pulled constantly inward so tightly, so silently, that the core of him is gathered into a solid ball, at once contracting and radiant. For that man to occupy the same space as a woman pulled, stretched like carnival taffy, into scalloped ribbons that ripple and fold in air currents, then double back around the man, a woman softened almost to melting by his golden heat. And I just have one more poem for Breed's Day tomorrow, or St. Bridget's Day, or Imbolc. So, and this is a poem from a manuscript of poems I'm working on about the Magdalen laundries. And this is in the voice of a girl stuck in the laundry, imprisoned in the laundry. Let's call it what it is, I guess. This is called St. Bridget's Oak. 3 short hallways and a brick wall encircle an old oak, St. Bridget's tree in a courtyard. Only these 9 windows, this glass fishbowl, are clear, not the pebbled glass that everywhere else keeps us safe from the untainted world. 3 doors lead out to the garden. They are always locked, though we see sisters out there sometimes, alone or in 2s or 3s, pruning roses, kneeling beneath the tree, or Bibles open on the iron bench. I want to run my fingers over that cold, snaked iron. I want to pocket acorns, those tiny hatted gents. I want to press my face into the damp leaves, beg Bridget to drive out my demons, like the one who whispers just now, "It will be dark soon. You know where Sister Timothy keeps her keys." Thank you. Thank you all.
Wow, thank you so much, Marcella. And thank you to all our readers. As you mentioned, what an incredible array of voices and stories and poetry we heard today. Like, just the range of it was extraordinary, truly extraordinary. And I remember today, this reading was a little longer than we've been doing them normally, and it reminded me of those days, the first months that we were doing the really long, epic 3-hour readings, and I was getting just a tad nostalgic for those, but remembering kind of what happens when we stretch the reading out long as opposed to the compactness. So I appreciate everyone practicing your deep listening today, and the time. Well, we heard from such a great, I just give the first names of our poets today: Amit and Kate and Shaswata and Larry and Bill Nevins, Ron, Marian, Ken, Bill Fay, and Marcella. You all have been listening today and watching Cultivating Voices live poetry here on Facebook. And some of you, of course, will now be watching the recording. We appreciate all of you, whether you're live or after live. Well, I want to remind you to join us next Sunday for our first new book showcase of February. We're going to be featuring the new books of 4 wonderful poets: Tamara J. Madison, Mike Jerkovic, Irish Gersh, and Carla Cherry will be reading from her book that I just happened to get in the mail, Stardust and Skin. And 2 weeks from today, join us for our special February event, maybe our biggest event of the year, who knows, on Valentine's Day, Sunday, February 14th. It's our Laureate Love Fest with 11 poets laureate from across the United States, with special guests from Canada, Lisa Mulrooney, and Ireland's poet in resident, Kathryn A. Cullen, and featuring the following current and former poets laureate from the United States: Claudia Castro Luna, Grace Cavalieri, Char Denord, Charles Flowers, Mary Awishi, Kim Stafford, Carmen Tafola, Laura Tohe, and Azura Tajabi, as well as video performances by current U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo and U.S. Poet Laureate Emeritus Ted Kuzer. That's co-hosted with the Olympia Poetry Network and St. Martin's University. Check out our event page for this free event and for the link to register. Our next live open poetry mic will be Sunday, February 28th, and it's a special edition to celebrate Black Lives Matter and Black History Month. Our Cultivating Voices live poetry readings are always Sundays, always 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern, 8 p.m. in Ireland and the UK. So always check your time zones. Sign-ups begin for that on Thursday, February 25th. And as always, I'm still Sandy Yannone, your host of Cultivating Voices live poetry. My thanks also to Don Krieger for his unwavering technical support, and to my sister, co-founder of Cultivating Voices live poetry, Elizabeth. Everyone, be very well this week. Take very good care of your beloveds and keep writing. Namaste, my friends. Namaste.